Dan Morgan looks like the last guy you'd ever worry about. The kind of man who blends into the background of every room, whose biggest crime seems to be buying the wrong brand of cereal. He's a used car salesman, a devoted husband, and a father of 3 who schedules his life around soccer practice, grocery runs, and quiet nights at home. No enemies, no drama, no secrets. At least that's what everyone thinks. On what should have been a perfect night, Dan and his wife Jessica step out together to celebrate their 18th wedding anniversary. No kids, no distractions, just the 2 of them, holding hands like they used to, stealing a kiss when they think no one's watching. For a brief moment, life feels simple again. That moment doesn't last. Nearby, a group of loud, smug punks notice them. Instead of looking away, they start filming, laughing, zooming in, treating something intimate like it's content for their social feeds. Dan notices immediately.
Hey, that picture you just took, it was kind of a private moment. You mind deleting it?
And does what any normal guy would do. He asks them politely to delete it. No threats, no raised voice, just a request.
Hey, come on, man, don't.
They refuse. Worse, one of them uploads it right in front of him, daring Dan to do something about it.
Don't do that. Hey, come on, take it down. Take it down. Make me.
Jessica tells her husband to let it go. She doesn't want trouble. She knows how these things escalate. But Dan can't stop staring at the guy.
Hey, Dan, leave it. Let's...
Yeah, listen to your lady, Dan. Is there a tough guy in there, Dan? Are you a tough guy?
Jaw clenched, fists tight at his sides. The punks sense it. They smell weakness, or what they think is weakness. They mock him, call him soft, question his manhood, ask how a guy like him ever landed a woman like Jessica. And Dan does nothing.
Hey, tell me, how'd a loser like him get a girl as fine as you probably were?
He swallows it. Every insult, every laugh, every second of humiliation. He turns away and walks off with his wife, leaving the moment behind. But not really, because when they get home, when the lights are off and the house is quiet, Dan stands in the bathroom pouring cold water over his face, trying to wash away the look on their faces, the laughter, the shame. It doesn't work. The next day, Jessica takes out her frustration the only way she knows how, by hitting something hard. At her boxing gym, she punches until her knuckles burn, but even that doesn't help. She feels stuck, trapped in routine. She loves Dan, loves their kids, but she misses the fire, the spark, the man who used to surprise her. She vents to Gwen, the gym's owner, a woman who listens more than she talks. Jessica complains that Dan is a good man, but too safe, too quiet, too predictable. What she doesn't know is that Gwen knows more than she lets on. Because the truth is, Dan Morgan hasn't always been this man. For 18 years, he's lived small on purpose. He gave up excitement, danger, and attention. He chose invisibility. He became a husband who never goes out, a dad who avoids photos, a man who doesn't fight back even when he should. And he did it to protect the only thing that ever mattered to him, his family. The very next day, fate decides to test that choice. Dan takes his youngest child with him to the supermarket. Just a quick errand. Diapers, snacks, maybe some ice cream. Everything feels normal until it doesn't. As Dan opens the freezer, his instincts fire without warning. A man rushes him, fast, too fast, no hesitation, no words. An assassin. The attacker leaps with lethal intent, not caring that Dan is holding a child. Dan tries to reason with him, asks for a second to put the baby down. The attacker ignores him and swings anyway. That's when something terrifying happens. Dan doesn't panic. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't run. He reacts. With speed and precision that no ordinary man should possess, Dan counters the attack while protecting his child. He absorbs blows that would drop most people. Then he strikes back, hard, controlled, brutal. Cans fly, shelves collapse. A perfectly timed kick sends the attacker crashing to the floor unconscious. The entire store freezes. Dan calmly picks up the diapers, checks on his kid like nothing happened, and walks out while everyone stares in stunned silence. But Dan knows the truth. This wasn't random. He races home, adrenaline surging, and for the first time in nearly 2 decades, he breaks his own rules. Inside his house, he presses a hidden panel behind the staircase. A compartment opens, untouched for 18 years. Inside is a black bag filled with weapons, expired passports, and reminders of a life he buried. Dan Morgan is no ordinary man, and someone has finally found him. He calls an old contact, Nick, a man who sounds shocked just hearing Dan's voice. Nick thought he was dead. Everyone did. Dan doesn't waste time explaining. He needs new identities immediately for his entire family. Nick tells him the name he's been dreading, McCaffrey, the man who once owned his life. Dan hangs up knowing one thing for certain. If they stay, his family dies. So he does the unthinkable. He tells Jessica to pack the kids, not for safety, not for hiding, for a road trip. Las Vegas. Jessica thinks he's lost his mind. He jokes, flirts, acts reckless, nothing like the man she's known for years. But Dan isn't running towards Vegas. He's running away from something far worse. As they pull out of the parking lot, Dan spots a black Escalade watching them. Not following, watching. Their eyes lock for just a second. That's all it takes. Dan floors the gas, and as the black SUV begins to move, he realizes the past he buried has finally caught up to him, and this time, it's coming for his entire family. The moment Dan presses the accelerator, the tone inside the car shifts. What was supposed to be a spontaneous family getaway suddenly feels urgent. Jessica notices it first.
Sorry about that. There, Leadfoot.
Your squirrel is...
The way Dan grips the steering wheel, the way his eyes keep flicking to the mirrors, the way his jokes stop landing. Behind them, the black Escalade rolls forward like a predator that's decided to stop waiting. Dan takes a sharp turn, claiming it's a shortcut.
I'm gonna take a shortcut. Save us a little bit of time.
Jessica immediately questions it. He never takes shortcuts. He's the kind of man who memorizes routes and avoids surprises. But before she can push further...
Go, go, go!
A bus cuts between them and the Escalade, breaking the line of sight. Dan exhales, but not in relief, in calculation. He knows better than to assume it's over. Minutes later, the Escalade reappears, closer this time, faster. No headlights, no plates that matter. Jessica's voice tightens as she asks where they're going.
Oh my God.
Where on earth are you taking
Oh no,
us?
this is a shortcut, honey. You never take it.
Dan doesn't answer directly. He swerves again, forcing the minivan down a narrow road that makes no sense for a vacation route. The kids are confused. Nervous laughter fills the back seat. Dan tells them everything's fine, but his tone doesn't match his words. That's when he decides to take them somewhere even riskier, his workplace. Dan drives straight into the used car dealership where he sells vehicles for a living. He opens the gate remotely and speeds inside, just as the Escalade tries and fails to follow. The gate slams shut.
Service area to the right.
Inches from the SUV's hood. Jessica demands answers. Dan gives excuses. Inside the garage, he lifts the family car under a hydraulic platform under the pretense of checking something. What he actually finds confirms his worst fear: a live tracking device planted underneath the vehicle. They're not guessing where he is, they know. Without hesitation, Dan removes the tracker and walks calmly across the garage to a coworker who's about to test drive a flashy sports car. With a few friendly words and a smile, Dan sticks the tracker under that car instead, sending their hunters chasing the wrong target. It works, for now.
Once back on the road, Dan makes a decision that shocks everyone. He tells the kids to hand over their phones. When they argue, he doesn't negotiate. He takes every device, his included, and tosses them into a river without slowing down.
Okay, give him up now. What? Seriously?
What?
Give it up now. Jess, a little help.
Okay,
Let's go.
Hand him over.
Yours too.
Jessica explodes. The kids stare at him like he's lost his mind. Dan says it's for family bonding, a device-free vacation. But beneath that excuse is a darker truth. No signals means no tracking, no posts, no breadcrumbs. For the first time in years, Dan Morgan is done hiding behind normalcy. Night falls, and the family eventually drifts off to sleep, exhausted by confusion and tension. Everyone except Dan. He stays alert, eyes scanning the darkness, senses sharpened. Then he hears it. Motorcycles. Not one, several. They emerge from the shadows, engines growling as they surround the minivan. These aren't random bikers. Their formation is too tight, their movements too intentional. Dan doesn't wake his family. He does something far more disturbing. He calmly connects his music, slips on his headphones, and pulls a silenced handgun from a hidden compartment, like this is muscle memory, like he's done this before, many times. As the first assassin pulls alongside, Dan fires with surgical precision, shattering the man's arm and sending him crashing into the road. Another attacker closes in, gun raised, but Dan yanks him off the bike mid-motion. During the struggle, the assassin drops his weapon. From the back seat, Dan's youngest child, half asleep, half awake, hands him a baby bottle. Dan uses it. He jams the bottle into the attacker's helmet, crushing his airway until the man goes limp. The final biker speeds up, desperate. Dan swerves just enough to clip him, sending him tumbling across the asphalt. Inside the car, Jessica stirs. Dan smiles and blames a pothole.
What was that?
Hey, honey. There's a little bit of a pothole there. Actually, you see that? Hey, I was flying.
By morning, the road is quiet again. No pursuit, no blood, no signs of the violence that just happened. They stop at a motel, following the same routine Dan and Jessica have had for 18 years, Thursday night, no matter where they are. Jessica smiles, unaware of how close death came while she slept. When they finally arrive in Las Vegas, everything explodes into color and light. Jessica is overwhelmed with joy. This has been her dream for years. Dan goes even further. He books a presidential suite at a luxury casino, the kind of place that screams money he shouldn't have. That night, Dan meets Nick in secret. Nick hands him new passports, new names, plane tickets for the next morning. Vancouver, a clean break. Dan pays him $500,000 without blinking. Back in the suite, Dan hides a knife against his leg and a gun in his waistband, just in case. Jessica steps out in a red dress that stops him cold. For a moment, everything feels normal again. They laugh, flirt, dine under candlelight. Dan almost forgets why they're here. Almost. After dinner, he finally tries to tell her the truth, but before the words fully land, the night erupts in gunfire. Fireworks? No. Assassins. Dan drops the act instantly. 2 men fall before Jessica can even scream. A third grabs her, pressing a gun to her head. And then the truth detonates. They call Dan by another name. They threaten his children. Jessica watches as her boring husband disarms a trained killer with ruthless efficiency. Blood sprays, bones break. The man collapses. Dan grabs the attacker's phone, and Jessica realizes the life she thought she knew is a lie. When they rush back to the suite, the kids are gone. Not kidnapped, gone. And the last thing Dan hears before the line cuts is a cold voice promising that this is only the beginning. The hallway outside the suite feels longer than it should. Every step echoes. Every second without the kids feels like a knife twisting deeper into Dan Morgan's chest. Jessica rushes past him, panic replacing disbelief, throwing doors open, calling their names. Nothing. The beds are cold. The room is untouched. The children didn't struggle. They left on their own. That realization doesn't calm Dan. It terrifies him. Because the assassins didn't take them, which means something worse is happening. Dan pieces it together fast. The phone he grabbed from the dead attacker buzzes in his hand. A message flashes across the screen. Coordinates, a name, a gaming arena. Jessica snaps. She demands answers, real ones. No jokes, no half-truths, no smiling deflections. Her voice cracks as she reminds him of the phones he threw away, the lies he told, the danger he dragged them into. Dan tries to explain, but the words come out wrong. He says too much, then too little, and none of it makes sense to her. They race through the neon chaos of the casino, past tourists who have no idea a war is unfolding right beside them. Music pounds, lights flash, and then they hear it. A crowd chanting their son's name. Inside the gaming arena, their kids are alive, laughing, celebrated. Their son has just pulled off an insane competitive win, demolishing a top-ranked team while the crowd goes wild. He's standing under bright lights, basking in attention, completely unaware that his father's past is closing in. Jessica almost collapses with relief. Dan doesn't. He knows this much visibility is deadly. He rushes them together and finally says the words he's been avoiding for nearly 2 decades. They have to leave, now. Because the people coming for him aren't criminals. They're his former co-workers. The kids laugh. They think it's a joke. Their dad, the man who avoids confrontation, who flinched when strangers mocked him, is suddenly claiming to be some kind of assassin? Then someone opens fire. The laughter dies instantly. Dan shoves the kids behind cover and draws his weapon with terrifying calm. He creates a distraction, commandeers a luxury car, and lures the shooter away from his family before ending the threat in seconds. This time, his son sees everything: the blood, the precision, the lack of hesitation. One of the kids vomits. Jessica can't look at him anymore. They escape into the night and hide in a rundown motel far from the strip. No luxury, no lights, just a flickering sign and thin walls that won't stop bullets. Inside that room, Dan finally tells them everything. His real name isn't Dan, it's Sean. He grew up broken, a dead mother, a violent father. At 18, the military was his way out and his way in. He wasn't just good, he was exceptional. A genetic anomaly, faster reflexes, higher tolerance, deadlier instincts. He was recruited into elite units, Green Berets, Delta Force. Then came McCaffrey, an older man, a mentor, a father figure who offered him purpose. They called it a special program, off-the-books operations targeting the worst people on Earth. Terrorists, warlords, monsters no court could touch. Sean believed he was doing good until the missions changed, until the targets became profitable. McCaffrey started selling his team to the highest bidder, turning justice into business. Sean refused. He fought his way out and disappeared, knowing it meant betraying the only family he'd ever known. They've been hunting him ever since. The kids sit in stunned silence as he answers the question none of them want to ask. How many? At first he dodges, then he admits it. 43. Silence crashes over the room. Jessica explodes. She calls him a liar, a hypocrite, a killer pretending to be a family man. Everything she thought she hated about her life suddenly feels like it was built on a lie. She storms out with the kids, refusing to listen to another word. Dan doesn't chase them. He sits outside all night, gun in hand, guarding the door like a ghost, because protecting them is the only thing he knows how to do. At dawn, Jessica comes back, not to reconcile, but to leave. She's arranged something of her own. She won't say what. She says it's to protect him, even if it means leaving him behind.
Dan begs her not to go. He warns her the airport will be watched. She doesn't care. She takes the kids and walks away. What Dan doesn't know is that Jessica didn't make these arrangements alone. At a private airstrip outside the city, a sleek jet waits. The person welcoming them isn't law enforcement. It isn't family. It's Gwen, the gym owner, the listener, the woman who knew more than she ever admitted. As the plane takes off, Gwen begins telling Jessica a story about a man she loved once, a man who vanished, a man who built a new life with another woman. Jessica slowly realizes the story isn't a metaphor, it's a confession. And when Gwen admits she didn't bring them there to save them, but to deliver Dan, Jessica understands too late. Meanwhile, Dan's phone rings. McCaffrey's voice fills the line, cold, calm, certain. He tells Dan where to go, an abandoned casino, 30 minutes, alone, if he wants his family back. Dan doesn't hesitate, because he knows this isn't a rescue, it's a reckoning. The abandoned casino looms out of the desert like a rotting corpse, lights dead, windows shattered, memories of glory long gone. Dan Morgan pulls up alone, engine idling for just a second before he kills it. No backup, no plan B, exactly how McCaffrey wanted it. Inside, the air smells like dust and old money. A man with a thick gold chain steps out of the shadows, smiling like he's welcoming an old friend home. He pats Dan down, finds the weapons Dan didn't bother hiding, and leads him toward the elevators. Upstairs, the truth detonates in ways Dan never expected. McCaffrey is waiting, older, colder, still dangerous. He greets Dan like a proud parent, and then drops the bomb. He isn't just a mentor, he's family. Kyle and the others step into the room, confused, just in time to hear McCaffrey call himself their grandfather. The kids laugh at first, assuming it's another lie in a night full of them. Dan doesn't laugh. He can't. McCaffrey explains it casually, almost tenderly. He trained Dan, raised him, molded him. Everything Dan is came from him. That's why the betrayal hurt so deeply. That's why McCaffrey wanted him dead. But things have changed. Dan survived every assassin sent after him. He protected his family. He fought like the man McCaffrey remembers, and that fills the old killer with pride. McCaffrey offers him a choice. Come back, restore the old order, work together again, father and son. If Dan refuses, his wife and children die, slowly, publicly. Dan agrees, not because he believes it, but because he has to buy time. McCaffrey orders his men to escort the family away. He thinks the game is over. He's wrong. In the elevator, Dan's daughter speaks up. She refuses to believe her father stopped loving them. She reminds her mother of every awkward, loving, ridiculous thing Dan ever did. The dad who showed up. The dad who cared. Jessica listens. Then she acts. In the cramped elevator, with her youngest child squirming in her arms, she changes a diaper right in front of McCaffrey's guard. The smell hits like a weapon. The distraction is enough. Jessica strikes. The guard goes down hard, unconscious before he knows what happened. The doors open and the family runs back toward the casino floor. Upstairs, Dan is already moving. He never intended to rejoin McCaffrey. He was stalling, buying seconds, counting bodies. When reinforcements swarm the building, Dan turns to the one ally he never expected, his son. Using a drone and security feeds, the kid guides his father through the casino like it's a video game. Callouts, directions, timing. Together, they dismantle McCaffrey's men one by one. McCaffrey realizes too late that he's lost control. He calls Gwen, orders her to finish the job. She arrives confident, dangerous, personal. Her fight with Jessica is brutal, years of training versus raw desperation. Jessica is outmatched, slammed to the ground again and again, but she doesn't quit. She spots a bamboo pole lying nearby, part of an old decorative display. She grabs it, remembers every hour she spent hitting bags, every ounce of rage she swallowed for years. The fight turns savage. Gwen mocks her, underestimates her. That's the mistake. Jessica strikes with everything she has. When Gwen finally collapses, gasping, Jessica stands over her, shaking, bleeding, but victorious. Upstairs, Dan faces McCaffrey alone. The old man is still lethal, still fast. He overpowers Dan, his gun aimed at his own son. Then Dan's daughter speaks. She tells McCaffrey about family, about forgiveness, about choosing love over bloodshed. It isn't a speech meant to save McCaffrey, it's meant to buy time. Dan takes the opening. McCaffrey goes down. This time, he doesn't kill him. He walks away. Police sirens approach. Dan knows what comes next. He turns himself in, accepts his past, prepares to pay for it. But Jessica and the kids stand by him. They testify. They tell the truth, that everything he did was to protect them. Against all odds, Dan is allowed to go home. Not as a killer hiding behind a fake life, but as a man finally living honestly. And for the first time in 18 years, Dan Morgan isn't running anymore. The flashing red and blue lights don't feel threatening anymore. They feel inevitable. As police swarm the abandoned casino, Dan Morgan slowly raises his hands, not in surrender, but in acceptance. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, he isn't calculating exits or escape routes. He isn't planning to disappear. He's done running. Jessica watches from a distance, her hands trembling, her clothes torn, blood drying on her knuckles. Just days ago, this was the man she thought she knew better than anyone. Quiet, predictable, almost invisible. Now she's watching him stand calmly in the aftermath of a private war, shoulders squared, eyes steady, and somehow she understands him better than she ever did before.
Dan is taken in for questioning. Hours pass, then more hours. The kids sit together exhausted, scared, but alive. For the first time since this nightmare began, no one is chasing them. No engines in the distance, no shadows watching from across the street, just silence. The truth comes out piece by piece, not the myth, not the legend, just facts. Dan doesn't deny his past, he doesn't minimize it. He admits who he was, what he did, and why he disappeared. He tells them about McCaffrey's program, about missions that never existed on paper, about how necessary evils slowly turned into profitable ones. He explains how walking away meant becoming a target, and how building a quiet life was the only way he knew to protect his family. Jessica testifies too. She tells them about the night at the motel, about the assassins, about the threats against their children, about how every violent act Dan committed in recent days was in direct response to someone trying to kill them. The kids speak as well, nervous, honest, unfiltered. They talk about the dad who showed up, the dad who packed lunches, the dad who embarrassed them on purpose just to make them smile, the dad who never missed a game, even when he had to sit in the back and keep his head down. Slowly, the narrative shifts. Dan Morgan isn't a monster hiding in plain sight. He's a man who escaped one violent system and spent 18 years trying to be better. McCaffrey doesn't get that chance. With his empire exposed and his operations dragged into the light, everything he built collapses. No more shadows, no more leverage, no more control. For a man who lived on power, that's a worse punishment than death. When it's over, Dan walks free. Not untouched, not unscarred, but free. Life doesn't magically turn perfect. There's no montage where everything snaps back into place. Trust has to be rebuilt. Conversations are awkward. Silences linger longer than before. The kids look at their father differently now, not with fear, but with complexity. And Jessica? She doesn't pretend the lie didn't hurt, but she also can't ignore the truth staring her in the face. The man she fell in love with never disappeared. He just buried parts of himself so deeply that even she couldn't see them. Weeks later, life settles into a new rhythm. Dan still sells cars, still fixes things around the house, still forgets where he put his keys. But he no longer shrinks himself to fit into a harmless box. He doesn't flinch from attention. He doesn't avoid the camera when family photos are taken. He's present, fully. On a quiet evening, the family sits together, laughing over something stupid, one of Dan's terrible raps, probably. And for the first time, no one is pretending, no one is hiding. Dan Morgan was once a weapon, then he became a ghost. Now he's just a man who chose his family over everything else, and lived long enough to face the consequences. Not every past can be erased, but some can be owned, and that makes all the difference.